All right, welcome back. Happy Monday. Don't forget to take your exam by midnight tonight. And I'm going to share my screen. We're starting chapter 9, physical and cognitive development in middle childhood. So we're talking about some 6 to 11 action. Uh, Early childhood is 2 to 6, and then infancy and toddlerhood before that, right? Physical and cognitive development. Introduction. These are during the school year, 6 to 11. We begin to expand activities, expand our relationships. We're guided toward real world activities. We're going to start mastering these challenging mental tasks like conservation and things like that, decentration and so on, reversibility. We acquire fundamental knowledge and skills that are needed to operate in a complex social world. What happens to our bodies? We grow. Okay, it's slow, regular pace. Girls are shorter and lighter until about the age 9, and then bam, it reverses. The lower portion of our body grows faster, right? Our legs, our bones lengthen, broaden, our muscles very flexible. Those were the days. All our permanent teeth begin to, our chiclets begin to start showing up. So the most common health problems: malnutrition, obesity.
Question.
No questions. No, go ahead. What?
It relates to teeth. It just you made me think of it. I don't know if you know the answer, but so my son is getting like molars. His may sound silly. Do do kids lose their molars like once they grow in?
Yeah, I believe so.
Right? Like
Yeah,
okay, all
yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's
No,
all.
yeah. It's hard to believe that because we're used to the front ones, huh?
Yeah, and like it's growing in, and it looks so painful because like it's like a flap of skin that it's coming through, and I was like, does he lose those and get more? So
I think they
yeah,
all should be. I think we go through all of them. I don't know. I think
okay.
so. Yeah. Look it up. Let me know. All right. Malnutrition, obesity, vision, hearing, illnesses, and injuries. Let's talk about malnutrition. A well balanced, plentiful diet provides energy that's for successful learning, physical activities. Our intelligence, our thinking, our thoughts, our focus, even our test taking is all affected by diets high in sugar, processed foods like the Baconator, yeah, or a McDonald's apple pie, right? Those pies, they ain't no good for you.
I just want you
Yeah.
to know that Friday night I had a quarter pounder with cheese, and that's your fault.
Did you really? Was it good though? Don't lie.
It was good. The fries were better.
Fries are king at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Nobody makes them better than McDonald's. It's true.
That was your fault, though.
I know. You're welcome. Diets low in iron and folate, or folate, I think. I don't know. Malnutrition that persists from early childhood into the school years often results in permanent physical and mental damage. Overweight and obesity. We say that a child is obese when they have greater than a 20% increase over healthy weight. We do this based on the BMI, the body mass index. We are considered overweight if we are above the 85th percentile and obese if we're above the 95th. Rising obesity is worldwide due to urbanization, where we have more sedentary lifestyles and diets high in refined foods, such as McDonald's French fries. The causes of obesity: genes. Genes contribute to our weight more than anything else. Low socioeconomic status, diets rich in sugar and fatty foods, frequently eating out, parental feeding practices like overfeeding or being overly restrictive, family stress within the family dynamics, insufficient sleep, because sleep will like not getting sleep will disrupt metabolism, TV and screen media, and lastly, of course, sedentary lifestyles, low physical activity. The health risks for obese children: well, first, they're more likely to be obese adults. Some of the physical symptoms: having high blood pressure, high cholesterol, respiratory problems, insulin resistance, and their development of lifelong problems like heart disease, circulatory problems, diabetes, gallbladder disease, sleep and digestive disorders, cancer, and even early death. We see a dramatic rise in childhood diabetes due to urbanization, family stressors, and childhood obesity. Chronic and persistent stress will trigger elevated stress hormones, and these will signal energy expenditure. Thus we have these desire to eat to replace the energy expenditures. Pre-diabetic insulin resistance will cause raging appetites, like that dog that Samantha's petting. That dog? That's a small dog. What is that?
She's just
Who,
a sweet little girl.
who is it? Who is it?
Maggie.
Maggie. Is it? Sit. Who's at the door? Who is it?
The big dumb chocolate lab attacks her, so sometimes
Oh.
I hold her.
Yes. Chronic and persistent stress can also trigger self-regulation problems that cause excessive eating. Childhood obesity is also linked to deficits in delayed gratification, poor regulation of emotion, and poor regulation of behaviors. But self-regulation training helps. So some consequences, some psychological and social consequences of obesity. Stereotyping. We know, right? There are these implicit associations that we have for people who are beautiful, like me. You think that people like me are smarter, kinder, more extroverted. Well, we're not all that way, just me. But we have the reverse for those, stop it, Trish. We have the reverse for those who are not so svelte and no, we do. We have these negative associations, these implicit biases against heavy people. We think that they are less intelligent. We think that they are lazy. We think that they are, and when I say we, I'm saying the proverbial we. Okay, be clear. Okay, because not everybody feels that way, but more often than should, uh, when they are defending themselves in a trial, the jurors are more likely to find them guilty. Okay, we have these negative stereotypes about people who are overweight. It could lead to social isolation because their peers are teasing them because they have a low self-esteem, which then could lead to, doesn't mean it goes from one to the next, but also poor academic achievement. Right? Why should I bother? Severe anxiety, depression, suicide ideation, reduced life chances in relationships and employment. They have a harder time getting a job. How do we treat obesity? Family-based interventions are most effective, where they focus on changing weight-related behaviors. Get some exercise, get some greens in your diet, you know, cut back on these high sugar, high fat, uh, and fast food items. We could use monitoring and tracking devices. There are school interventions where we could just have, you know, grade wide screenings. The cafeteria could serve better, more nutritional foods. We could have more recesses and physical education time. We could have obesity awareness programs given to our children. Any questions? A student in my morning class asked, "Well, when does when does it become the case where a parent could get in trouble for feeding their children poorly and not getting them the appropriate exercise or whatever?" I see Trish shaking her head. What does that mean?
I know laws are different in different places, but I worked in a PZR and we would get a lot of diabetic kids who were overweight, not taking their insulin. Parents weren't doing anything about the diet, and CPS would say, the child's not in danger yet.
Mm,
So I don't know that they can ever hold the parents responsible at
mm,
this point.
yeah, and like we talked about earlier, how do we know what is how do we know what part of the weight they have is not attributable to genetics? Do you know? But someone could say, well, look, they're giving them, oatmeal cream pies and, all this soda every day, multiple times a day. That's not good for them. It's not a varied diet. There's no, leafy greens and whatnot.
But you have to wonder at some point the child has to take responsibility for themselves. So you can't make a blanket law.
Yeah. A child who's 7.
That's what I'm saying though. But
Yeah.
12, you may not have any of the stuff in the house, but that doesn't stop them from getting it somewhere else.
Yeah, that's true. Right. So how do you know that? Right. So where do you draw the line? When is it the parent's fault? When is it the individual's fault? And
Right. When is it just genetics and there's nothing
yeah,
you can do? Yeah.
yeah. And but don't you think it was an appropriate question if this student was genuinely, which the student was genuinely concerned about children who are, because he was asking, at what point is it a form of child abuse?
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Agreed.
yeah. It's a good question to ask, but I don't know the answer, and I don't know that there should be an answer. I don't know. I just don't know. Okay, so some other common health problems like vision and hearing, um, myopia, which is nearsightedness, meaning they can't see far away. This is the most common vision problem. The risk increases with the increase in time spent reading, writing, using computers. Even early biological trauma can induce it. Otitis media, middle ear infections. It's common in infancy and early childhood, but it becomes less frequent in middle childhood. Screenings are so important to prevent hearing loss. Illness in middle childhood, higher rates in the first 2 years of school. Why? Because we're more exposed to other children who are sick and our immune system is still developing. 20 to 25% of middle aged children uh, uh, have chronic illnesses where asthma is the most common. Others are severe illnesses that include sickle cell anemia, cystic fibrosis, diabetes, arthritis, cancer, AIDS, unintentional injuries. Of course, the boys are going to be more at risk. Leading cause, number one, motor vehicle accidents. Number two, bicycle accidents. How do we prevent? School and community-based safety programs, trainings, lectures, um, providing protective helmets, making it a law that you have to wear helmets, reduce exposure to hazardous situations. If you know a lot of these kids are getting hurt in this particular area because they're, jumping off a bridge, landing in water, and they're getting, some of them are dying. You know this locally too, right? Maybe you restrict access to these places. So in the red, the girls, in the purple, the boys. You can see across time and age, and along the x-axis, as we age, boys start to the roof. Like what? Look what I can do. Look how fast I can go, right? And then girls, they're their chances increase too, just because their opportunities for injury increase, as we age. Motor development and play. We see improvements in motor coordination that are due to gains in size and strength. We're more efficient in our information processing and our reaction times. We can actually start catching a ball now. Uh, Gross motor skill gains are in flexibility, balance, agility, force. Fine motor skill gains in our writings and our drawings. Girls are better at fine motor skills, balance, agility. Boys better at gross motor skills, sports. Now, not all girls are better at fine. Not all boys are better at gross. These are on average. The social environment influences. So maybe it's not just genetic. Maybe it's not just some way of evolving differently. What we're presented with, what our experiences are, our parents' expectations. Get out there, Johnny. Get out there and throw the ball. Go practice this or go practice run faster, whatever. Right? Um, Self perceptions. I'm a girl. I can write well because I'm a girl. Coaching. Different coaches will focus on different individuals based on their sex. What's that, babes? And of course, what we see in the media.
Letter from my friend.
Oh, that's nice. Middle childhood is a crucial time for participation when children discover their abilities and to make skill commitments, like playing, t-ball or going to play youth soccer. We start to become more involved with games with rules, organized sports, invented games. Now, these abilities are supported by gains in perspective taking, right? You pass the ball over to so and then the so and so passes it back to you, and then you shoot, you kick, you throw, you do what you got to do. This will then ultimately contribute to our emotional and social development. We have adult organized youth sports. They're showing soccer, baseball, softball, basketball, ball. Rough and tumble play helps establish dominance hierarchies. And we've known, time goes on, our physical education is becoming increasingly insufficient in schools. Now, Piaget said we're finally past the pre-operational, the sensory motor and the pre-operational stage of cognitive development. Now we're into the concrete, right? So now we can develop conservation, right? Does anybody remember what conservation is?
That's the one where you have 2 glasses of water and you pour one in a different size glass of water and they thought it was less, but it was the
Correct.
same.
That's correct. That even though something changes shape, it doesn't change amount or volume. So, but now we do grasp conservation. We conserve that volume, that amount, because we're no longer centrating on a particular aspect of it. And we can mentally undo it. We can reverse it mentally. We're also capable of classification, putting things into a series of smallest to largest, quietest to loudest, and so on. And we start to develop more and better spatial reasoning. So, conservation is the result of decentration, where we can focus on several aspects of a problem and relating them, not just how high is the clay ball when you smush it versus when you don't. Oh, the one you don't, it's taller, so I'm centrating on the height, therefore it must be more. So you're no longer centrating and you're not experiencing irreversibility, you're experiencing reversibility. We're thinking through a series of steps and then mentally reversing the direction. Classification skills. Children can pass the class inclusion problem. They're aware of classification hierarchies. They can focus on multiple category relations at once. So you see in this picture here, you got these kids that are classifying these stamps based on color, size, shape, what's in them, what the images are. Series or seriation, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's not serration, sorry. Seriation, the ability to order items along a quantitative dimension. Smallest to largest, quietest to loudest, dimmest to brightest, sweetest to, not sweet. Becomes efficient around 6 to 7 years of age. And now we can put things into a series mentally. It's called transitive inference. The limitations of concrete operational thought. We are still not thinking abstractly. We apply, right? Our operations are concrete, so we apply the information that we can perceive directly. We have to physically be able to see it in order to solve problems. There's the continuum of acquisition where children master concrete operational tasks gradually, step by step. Let me see. Yep. Okay. Gains in information processing. As we age, we can handle increasingly difficult tasks to our improved working memory, problem solving, inhibition, which means staying at task, flexible shifting of attention. You're working on a task, you can look over there and go back to it. Planning, strategic thinking, self monitoring, and self correction. So, attention and working memory. Our attention becomes more selective, flexible, adaptive. These working memory gains allow us to become more efficient thinkers. Our processing time declines rapidly, but the exception to this is that poverty seems to hinder task performance. Children perform increasingly complex tasks that require the integration of working memory, inhibition, and flexible shifting of attention. So, how can we help or train executive function? These benefits, they benefit our academic achievement and social competence skills. So, some activities that promote executive function, they may be direct, like an interactive computer game, or they may be indirect, like you're doing something else that aids in it, like exercise or mindfulness training. Studies show improvements in working memory and sustained attention and reflection, and a reduction in impulsive behavior. Children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder affects 5% of US school age children. The first line says more boys diagnosed than girls who get overlooked. It's different than what you were thinking. That is simply the incidence is higher in boys, the prevalence is higher in boys. Right. They still would be, but more girls should be diagnosed. Or I should say, yeah, I guess you could say that. Girls often get overlooked. Inattention, impulsivity, excessive motor activity, and difficulty managing their emotions. This will result in academic and social problems. The executive function deficiencies underlie these symptoms. It's associated with prenatal teratogens. These are those toxic agents that can cross the placenta and have damaging effects on the developing fetus. So, associated with prenatal teratogens, parents with psychological disorders, and high stress families. To treat ADHD, stimulant improves attention for most children. It's insufficient by itself. So there has to be some other kind of training in executive function skills. We need the behaviors appropriately modeled. We want to work with the families so they know what's going on, how to handle, how to understand, how to accept. Adults with ADHD need ongoing assistance. Okay, last slide. Planning gains. Multi-step tasks gradually improve. So not just do this and you're done. Now let's do this, then apply that to this, then apply it to that. Advanced planning. By the end of middle childhood, we can evaluate entire sequence of steps. This is supported by demands of school tasks, adult scaffolding. We see that child-led groups engage in extensive planning. That is that. We're going to finish chapter 9 on Friday. I'm stopping the recording.